Let me zoom in on the docks a little bit so I can see what we are starting off with. I'll try to just like tab around.
When did you start
now
playing Warframe?
Yeah.
That's the first question. What's this guy? He's a revenant? Why are you Dante? Wait, whoa. You're Dante, and I'm over here trying to get my own overguard, buddy.
I got you covered, brother.
Alright.
Okay. Do an intro. Well, today's Clemcast is going to be filled with a bunch of stuff. I don't know if you've watched the dev shorts as well from this week, but they sort of teased the new spider frame a little bit, which looked interesting.
Believe it or not, I saw it from Kai's post. I saw he like uploaded a picture talking about it, so I actually saw it from Kai, believe it or not. I did not watch it. Been very, very busy with work.
It
like,
seemed
crazy
like
busy with work.
I mean, it's fair enough. We all gotta get our platinum farm somehow. we prefer to farm platinum IRL.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I saw that the spider frame's probably gonna be like clinging to walls whenever you jump to it or something. So if you jump to the ceiling, you'll just be like walking on the ceiling and stuff, which could be quite cool. No confirmations on that, but that's what it looked like. But we also have a little bit about the spider frame, what our expectations are of the frame and what our expectations will be of the update. What we think is going to happen in the future, maybe some prediction for TennoCon that also got teased a little bit. We are talking about the Valkyr rework, and we are going over the survey results, which we covered the original survey in our first episode. So that's pretty much all.
Time to talk about the answers now. We can kind of circle back to like what we thought the answers would be versus what they were. Honestly, most of the things that we thought the answers would be were pretty accurate, aside from some weird ones, but yeah.
They showed these graphs the other month even, I think, at this point, on one of the dev streams, what the answers to the survey were. The first questions were about mostly sort of the people that were answering the survey. So they started off with, when did you start playing Warframe, which a lot of people, of course, answered from a long time ago, but there is this weird little spike in like 2023, 2024, which is quite interesting. But yeah, this one wasn't too interesting. Or what did you think?
Yeah, I figured a lot of people who are still playing Warframe were veterans, because I think Warframe's turnover rate has always been kind of notoriously high. And if you do keep playing the game, you've been playing for a while. Or you're like a returning player who plays every couple months or so, like every 3 or 4 months, only when something new comes out. You're not like a completionist where most veterans will go for the legendary tier ranks, because I think a big portion of the game is between MR16 and MR23.
Yeah.
Additional life support has arrived.
So,
which was also leading us into the next question, which is, what is your mastery rank? And it's basically like a exponential graph going up from mastery rank, what is it, a 0 all the way to 35. So that's legendary rank 35. A lot of people that answered were 30 or above, so that makes sense as well. Just cumulative people that are usually into the game and are going to answer these kind of surveys are high level. Then, what kind of activities do you regularly play? A lot of people answered Archon hunts, which was interesting to me. And second was Deviri, then Netracells, EDA, ETA, and then Sortie being the lowest. It's just sort of what we saw coming, right?
yeah, I'll speak on the Sortie. The Sortie being the lowest makes a lot of sense to me, because Warframe and DE in general has made a very, very serious attempt to get new players into Steel Path as quickly as possible. No longer mandating the entire star chart to be completed, but now just, I think, what is it, the second war, the War Within?
Yeah.
Is it that one?
Or the new war? I think it's one of them.
The new war.
Either one.
One of those. And so now you can just kind of get into the end game, quote unquote, pretty quickly. And so now you have people who obviously will do Sortie a lot less, because it's like, these enemies are level 60. They're peons. You're going to walk away with an Ayaton sculpture anyway, so why bother? That's ultimately why I stopped doing sorties years ago. They're just not worth the time, like at all. At all, they're not worth the time.
If you really want endo, you are better off doing arbitrations or just farming it in the arena, right?
Yeah.
So if you're really there for the Ayatons, the only reason you would have to do the sorties is your 0.001% chance on a legendary core.
I can proudly say I've gotten one before, just one.
I've gotten 0, and I've played sorties a lot back in the day. And I guess the other thing that could be nice from the sortie is like if you get a 3-day mod booster. So the boosters are relatively okay, but apart from that, not much to do in the sorties. What did catch me off guard was the people playing Archon Hunts. Archon Hunts are played like over 50% of the time, which I think was quite interesting, as well as the very circuit still being played a lot. So definitely some circuit enjoyers.
It doesn't surprise me too much. Duviri is a grind. There's so many things you can farm, and a lot of people still tend to do, 5 waves, get some extra ribbons or something. Like, it's still worth your time, I think, in my opinion, and it's fun. They've definitely added improvements to Duviri. Now more important than ever, the next update taking place in Duviri, which we'll probably talk about in a future episode, especially when it drops. But I think Duviri is going to be more important than it's ever been since its release, which is exciting, especially for me, because I got my start when Duviri drops, at least for my content, and Incarnate weapons are really, really fascinating and fun to think about and hypothesize when they get teased and things like that. So I can definitely see why people still play that to a high extent.
Yeah, a lot of people, of course, need all of the Incarnates still as well, especially people who are joining either this year or last year or something.
I don't even have them all. I'm actually missing a few.
But that's mostly because of the Pathos clamps for me. Because I just don't feel like farming those bastards. But yeah, maybe the event will be giving us some Pathos clamps. That's what I've heard, so...
That would be huge.
We'll see. Next question was, what was our overall experience with Warframe? A lot of people answered either 5 or 6, so it was on a scale from 0 to 6. So a lot of people were positive. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, everybody plays Warframe for different reasons, whether it's just to turn your brain off, which I think most of the player base just logs in to turn their brain off, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yes.
But some people actually take the game very seriously and want to be very, very strong and do a lot of build hypothesis and testing and that. And so ultimately it's about why you play the game or why you still play the game.
And then finish this sentence. In 2025, I want the devs to focus more on bugs, lore, were big words. It was like sort of a word cloud with things that people answered. Some people also answered quality of life, but by far the biggest one is end game. Which I think...
We could have a whole episode on that.
Yeah, that's basically what we've discussed in the whole Melee influence saga, as well as the first episode, more or less. It's like, we need some end game kind of things to do. There's no incentive to, I don't know. All of the EDA, ETA stuff is interesting, but it doesn't feel rewarding. Like, I was playing it earlier this week, and I got quite a shitty setup with the frames that I got paired with, as well as the weapons, and then getting all of the modifiers on top of that. I don't know. It's a challenging experience, right? But it's not necessarily fun, or it doesn't feel fair in a way. It's just a bit like, we're gonna hamper all of your shit, and you have to deal with it. Good luck. So yeah, maybe we'll see some actual expansion into some kind of end game that's also repeatable and farmable and just a more joyful experience in the whole. The next one is more interesting to me, and it brings us a little bit back to endgame, but also a prediction. Is how important do you think Steel Path is? And a lot of people answered 4 or above, with the majority of the votes going out to 6. So people think Steel Path is really important. What's your perspective on that?
I mean, it's 1,000,000% important to me because it's the only level tier that I play on. I think I've mentioned this before. I think Warframe DE should add more world tiers with, modifiers to them or enemy level or different ways to scale the enemies. Because the way they scale now is just a little mundane. They need to be more than just health and health tanking, basically 500% more health or whatever.
Yeah.
I seriously think they need to bring more things into Steel Path, like Swordy. And endgame is so broad, right? Like endgame could be whatever DE makes endgame to be, right? They could add a new leveling system that could be considered endgame, which honestly Archon shards are kind of their own form of endgame. So
yes,
I want them to incorporate more things like Archon shards that just keep pushing the character or your frame more and more and more and more. But they have to match that with content, and every update it's just like mirror blank. They gotta add more mission types, like really, really badly.
it's also a lot of here, have a new syndicate. That's it.
Yeah.
I would honestly be I wouldn't be surprised if the new end game thing is just gonna be another separate syndicate. Which
Probably.
kind of sucks.
It's easy that way.
But we'll take it. Anything that we can get, we'll take. Next one was, how much do you interact with the Helminth system? A lot of people did. Also makes sense because of the high level of players responding to the survey. So that's not too surprising. And we have the next one, which is our opinion on the Kim Messenger system. I think I talked about this in the first one. I'm not a huge fan, but it's just not my thing. But people have been enjoying it, so seems
I
to have
thought the
struck a
relationship
chord.
thing was cool. I'll be honest, and I've told this to UKC.
Mm-hmm.
The last time they updated Kim Messenger, where they added Temple and the Saren and Frost characters and Nova, I have not sent one line of dialogue to them.
I didn't even wish him a happy birthday. I couldn't be bothered. I just skip all of the birthdays now as well. Like any moment I'm in that system, I'm like, what's the point? As I said, the only good thing about it is the lore. Yeah, the lore drops in that system are nice. It's a nice way to expand on the Warframe universe with some backstories and things. But apart from that, I'm like, not my type of thing. But that's completely fine. Everybody has their own tastes. It would be a very boring world if people didn't. Which boss fights did we enjoy the most? Well, I think we have an Aura Worm enjoyer in the call right here, and that was also the most voted boss, closely followed by the tank and still Eidolons. People still enjoy Eidolons a lot.
Aura Worm makes sense because it correlates directly to people's love of Duviri, obviously, which was the thing we answered just previously. So, I mean, it makes sense that Aura Worm would be, but ultimately, even if Aura Worm wasn't in Duviri, I'd still think it would be pretty high because Aura Worm fight is just that good. So, it's my opinion on
What
it.
I think is interesting is the Eidolons, but I think that's mostly because the real, like, late stage players are just farming them for arcanes. So they still, like, once you get the speed running down of Eidolons, they become a little bit more fun again. But if you're just there grinding away and you don't really have all of the ultimate setups, it's more of a slog than an actual experience that can be enjoyed. But that's my personal take on that. How much did we enjoy these bosses? That's a bit of a... I mean, it makes sense how this was answered. People liked some of the other bosses that were not, especially in the question before. They rated the Eidolons, Exploiter Orb, the tank, all the way to the Zealoid Prelate, which people enjoyed the least, which makes sense because there's a bunch of invulnerability phases that you have to slog through with, like, the Lantern carrying that around. So, yeah, not much of a Zealoid Prelate fan by myself either. Which open world would you like to return to the most is, I think, a more interesting question, which people answered with Deviri, and then Plains of Eidolon as second.
I mean,
so are we excited to go back to Deviri?
Yes. I think. Just depends on the content. What's the thing? You know, what are we doing in there? The what we're doing in there has got to be important, because obviously Deviri itself is very, very cool, aesthetically pleasing, etc. But if the content isn't fun on repeat, it's gonna be a slog.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what kind of game mode is introduced with Isleweaver. See if it's enjoyable to play or not. Only one way to find out, but not too much of time to wait anymore, so that's good. What do we look forward to the most in the Nightwave? People answered cosmetics, which I think is interesting, because we were definitely on the team for the augment mods.
That's because we're build tubers.
True. We're biased. But people were looking forward to cosmetics. I mean, free cosmetics, always nice to have. Better than spending a bunch of platinum or for the Tenno-gen money straight up. Unless you're on console, which is something I definitely miss, spending platinum on Tenno-gen.
Yeah, ever since I moved to PC, I have not bought any Tenno-gen.
Then for the Disruption mission that was voted most for the new Omnia Fissure, it was Disruption led by 32%, and then Mirror Defense on Mars, Tiana Pass, with Citrine's materials as well as Arcane's, was closely second. I'm still a proponent for the Mirror Defense, to be fair. Nice combo farm.
Bro, are you the one that's getting Paris Prime over and over? Is that your keys?
I'm
Can
unlucky.
you stop? Can you pick anything else? Holy crap.
Which Warframe without the deluxe? Which Warframe without the deluxe skin would you like to see receive one? Dante was voted the highest.
That makes sense. Dante's brain dead. Oh, look, who's on my team?
It's Dante.
It's Dante.
We love Dante.
Let's see. Where are we at right now with the survey?
I mean, the next question was about the social features. Please rate the social features like clans or hubs, which was rated a 3 out of 6.
It's a 0.
It was a 0 for me as well, but a lot of people were answering. I think people are always in favor of DE because they have some good standing kind of thing, which makes sense. But I could have been answered even lower. But still, to see it at 3 out of 6 means that they will likely look at it and actually do something about it, which is nice. They also mentioned it in, I think, the latest dev stream that they're looking at.
Yeah,
how to improve those kind of things. So.
What scared me, though, is it seemed like an off-the-wall question for Rebecca. Like, she hadn't even considered that. Like, she was kind of taken aback by the question, like, as if she had never even considered it. And to me, it's just like, it couldn't have been more obvious that clans are worthless. They're just completely worthless. It's just a resource dump that you can kind of pseudo-play room creator with it, like Sims or... And then after that, it's nothing more than invite me to your dojo because my ping is worse than yours, so I'll trade at your dojo instead. Like, that's the game, the end. Just recently did we get that clan event, and we haven't had one since. It's like we should be getting that. Like, we should be getting that every 3 months, like a Prime Access. We should be getting those events really often.
I think we're getting one with Isleweaver in just 1 or 2 weeks. So
I know, but think about when the last one was. Like over a year ago?
It seems like they're doing it on half-year intervals at the moment, because it started off with Gargoyle's Cry, which was last year in January. Then we had the Jade event, which was last summer. Then we had God, which was the event for this winter? We had another event. Can't even really remember what the event was, but we had another one, and then now we're getting one again in the summer. So it seems like they're doing winter, summer. So 2 a year, but they could do more, to be fair.
Yeah.
And they are always also rotating towards the Eidolon Arcanes, and it could be interesting if they either did every arcane in the game, which would be interesting, or like cycle some of the different kinds of arcanes, like the arcane sets, or maybe even just reward you with like a ton of phosphor so you can choose what kind of arcanes you want, which could also be good. Anyhow, what is something that Warframe should explain or introduce better? And then you see the mods system, modding system, modding mods. You see damage calculation as well, which is sort of the same as the modding system, not being explained very well. It's everything about the modding system isn't well explained. Do we agree with that?
I don't know if it has so much to do with modding the system bad, more like modding system difficult due to, you know, lack of available good mods. Like, you think about the corruption mods, you still can only acquire them in like really outdated like Orc and time trials. Like, what are we doing here? Super dated acquisition method. Really bad. I mean, if you think about your builds, like the builds that are good, that myself, Casey, Brozim, anybody you watch who makes Warframe builds, they're using Archon like stretch. They've got Prime mods in there. They got all sorts of stuff. Like, all the endgame mods, endgame quote unquote, are just locked to just really abstract ways. Like, you got to do the Stynax missions with Gaul. You got to wait for Borrow and hopefully you're lucky. Or you got to, you know, 1 million credits to trade for Prime continuity. Which, if you think about it, it's like 90% of it or 90% of builds have that mod, you know?
Yeah,
so
true.
I think while modding can be confusing on that aspect, yes, like, how do I make a good build? Sure. But if you're watching people and you watch a video, here's a good build, you're like, okay, I don't have that mod, I don't have that mod, I don't have that mod, I don't have that mod. And they kind of fixed that when they got rid of broken mods, but still, they need to add more mid-game mods. I think your mods are either shit or they're fucking awesome, and they need to add more mods that are middle of the road to help feel like a general progression between having bad unranked mods to like, wow, I actually have a few gold mods and I can actually feel myself getting stronger. Like, my range is better now, I can hit farther away, whatever, you know what I mean? My duration is longer, etc. It's either really good, really bad. Like, there's no in between, I think, with the modding system.
Yeah, true. I guess the main sense of progression that you get early in the game is like ranking the mods up. But even then, it's quite it's like small increments, so you don't really feel it. Like, for instance, the difference between a max ranked primed continuity and half ranked primed continuity is something that you feel. But if you do it rank per rank, so you play a little bit, play like 2 hours, you rank it up 1 rank, play another 2 hours, rank it up 1 rank, you almost don't feel the difference. So it doesn't feel as rewarding either.
Yeah.
About the mid-game mods, I don't know. I guess like ranking your mods sort of fits that progression arc. Like, ranking them up is what makes your build stronger, and you start off with them unranked. But they could do more like combination mods, in my opinion.
I like the crit damage magnetic that they added. Like, that's cool. Like, we need more of that. Absolutely.
Exactly. But then for Warframes, so it's like a little bit of efficiency, but also some armor, or a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Those kind of mods that are also not super expensive. They only go to like rank 5 or whatever. They're like a good in-between option that you do not have to spend too much time for to rank them up fully. But other than that, it's hard to see what kind of mods you would add. I think the dual stat ones are good. And the corrupted mods are corrupted mods. We could maybe use more of them now. Who knows? Possibly that's something they will rework in the future. We'll see. But yeah, the modding system. Anyway, that was pretty much all of the questions to the survey that were shown. There were more questions, of course, but that was all they shared. If you want to get all of the raw data, you can actually get it from a spreadsheet from the warframe.com website. So if you are a little bit of a data engineer yourself and you would like to see how you can plot all of the data about the Warframe player base, I will try to leave a link in the description and you can have a crack at it. But other than that, we will just jump into the next little segment of the pod, which is discussing the Valkyr rework. Oh boy.
I haven't publicly come out with my opinion of it. Like,
me neither.
The only thing I've expressively said about it is asking other people what they thought about it. That's all I've done. Let's see, what did you actually write here? Just kind of like the brief things about it. So, ultimately, I had made this comment in private, but the Valkyr rework does absolutely nothing to improve what she was good at, and it makes her worse at what she wasn't good at. And that's health tanking. I don't know why we're moving from invincibility to health tank. That is a net negative. There is no way you can spin that to say that is a better option, because it's not. And health tanking doesn't work on any frame currently. If you take endgame, quote unquote, or endurance missions seriously, if you are a 15-minute gamer where you join a mission, run it for 15, close the application, this rework is going to feel like the holy grail to you. But for everybody else who doesn't do that, it's not a very good rework. It's plain and simple. It's probably one of the few L's that Pablo has produced, because I think the gold standard is Wukong, and when it comes to reworking a frame, and I understand that the last few he's done have just been subtle touch-ups, but I think Valkyrie should have got rid of her 1. I think they should have completely redesigned her kit. I thought her 4th was fine, but I think they could have really done new things with her. And I knew from the start that the fact that they kept her 1, that this was not a serious rework.
Yeah,
that just blew me away. We have bullet jumping, we have parkour velocity shards in this game, and you want to keep that level of a relic in her kit? I was like, no way, dude. No way. So that's my opinion. I think it's bad due to the fact that health tanking is bad. It just is. You're removing invulnerability, which is amazing. No other frame has that. And you're replacing it with something that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So, that's my opinion.
I'm trying to look at the long game here that they could be playing, and what I could see is this being a start to get rid of some of the real die-hard invincibility mechanics. They might try to, because I think they recognize that Revenant is quite a big problem in the game, gameplay design-wise, and how they have to design bosses around just Mesmer skin, basically. I feel like they may want to take some steps to remove those kind of full invincibility mechanics. But what I don't agree with is that if you look at all of those sort of invincibility mechanics, Valkyr's one was actually the one where it was risk-reward type stuff, where you had to make sure that you didn't... you had to make sure you got enough kills and you were constantly going, so you didn't randomly just die and your invincibility was stripped away. So that's more engaging play than Revenant, for instance, where you press a button and then you go AFK for half a minute. But what I do agree with is that overall, calling it a full rework is a bit disingenuous, because it feels like the whole kit didn't really even change. It's just exactly the same stuff. And what I also didn't really like, also voiced by some other people, was every new passive that we get for frames, 9 out of 10 times it's deal X amount more damage. And I'm like, it's the last thing we need in the game is damage. damage is so easy to come by these days that it doesn't really make sense to have a passive that does that, especially if you want to get her into being a health tank. It would have been way better to have the passive be, I don't know, another multiplicative source of damage reduction, or something that, I don't know, changes the way your armor works, or something like that, instead of it just being extra damage, which is also additive to pressure point, by the way, so it's not even good extra damage, it's kind of average extra damage, and it actually competes with things like prime pressure point on your melees, which is a bit weird because then you're not using that on your melee anymore. Plus, it's also not really explained that this would compete, and that's the other part getting us back to the mod system and the damage calculation that was answered on the survey, is they don't explain how these passives work towards your other mods. They just say 300% extra damage, and you're like, okay, so should I now still use prime pressure point because that gives me then more damage, or should I not use prime pressure point because it doesn't, I get into diminishing return territory? It's just not clear, which I think is quite bad. But who knows? The rework is gonna hit in like 2 weeks, maybe 1 week, so we'll see what happens if they still changed a lot of things around. But yeah, I don't have my hopes up for this one, to be fair.
Have they revealed any of the changes to our augments yet? Have they shown how they're gonna change?
The only augments...
Maybe they're still working on it.
They did mention swing line, the augment. Rip line is now free while airborne. Parkour velocity is increased with mod rank. So swing line was one of the augments. The other augments I don't see anything about.
We don't have many tile sets where Valkyrie would really shine with grapple hook central. Like, this isn't just cause 4 here. Like, I don't know what she's going to be doing in these tile sets.
Yeah, we don't have parachutes. We don't have parachutes to glide with. I don't know. Also, there's so much stuff in the way. Like, if you look at just this tile set we are in at the moment, if you want to rip line, you've like a random TV screen in the way. You have all of these floating things in the middle of the room. It's not necessarily open, right? So a lot of these tile sets aren't even fit, like you say, for rip line kind of stuff.
I certainly wouldn't bring her in Thetis. I mean, Jesus. Thetis is open plains. Like, I would just, use a gun and jump up in the air and just, rain hell on them like Helldivers. But that's what I would do. So where is this rip line supposed to work?
We also don't have any... We didn't hear anything about the augment for Warcry, Eternal Warcry, because Warcry is going to be recastable, so it makes no sense that Eternal Warcry is still a thing, because it literally does nothing. You can just recast the ability now.
Yeah.
So no idea what they will change for that. Also not communicated. There was another augment for paralysis, prolonged paralysis. Enemies will now be ragdolled to group them up with the augment. The duration and feel will be the same, but this will ultimately fix a long-standing issue with the previous iteration with knockdowns, where enemies would not be pulled while afflicted with status effect reaction animations, heat or electric status effects. So it's sort of fixing it, but it's also removing part of the kit that made her so incredibly efficient, with her talons having insane ground finisher damage. So, also not that great. And then, I don't think we have anything for Hysteria. We don't really have an Hysteria augment, do we?
No, there is one. It's really bad.
Yeah. Damage and critical chance are increased to 350% from 200%. So they just increased the value. So yeah,
Health tank.
Yeah. Do we have any ideas about how we could make health tanking a little bit better?
Well, not really. Not on my end. I don't think about this kind of stuff. This is more your alley.
I think the best thing that I could come up with was something where you have a tiered armor system. and I think I mentioned this maybe in the previous podcast as well, is if you have... at the moment, you can go up to a bazillion armor and you will run into basically a logarithmic function tapering off to an asymptote all the way at the top. So the more you... Let's say you have 2,000 armor. If I add another 1,000, it's almost not going to do anything. And that kind of sucks. And armor is also just one source of damage reduction. So ideally, when you are health tanking, you are stacking damage reduction sources. So for instance, if you have Trinity, you have Link, which redirects damage. Then you have your Blessing, which is damage reduction. Then you can run Adaptation, which is damage reduction. And then if you want, you can even Helminth something on like the Stars from Nova or Eclipse from Mirage to get even more damage reduction. Then you can spawn an Ancient Protector for another 90% damage reduction. You get a Citrine Spectre for damage reduction. And then you stack all of that together. It actually becomes viable and you can health tank close to, if not at level cap. The problem with this armor and all of the frames that have so much armor is that it doesn't really do anything. So my idea is, if you have armor that scales, let's say you have a tier of armor every 500 armor value. What this would mean is you go up to 500 armor, you get 90% DR. Then any armor you put on top of that basically flows into another multiplier, which again goes up to 90 for another 500 or X amount of armor. Then you just keep doing that until you go to, don't know, rank 5 armor, let's say, where you have 5 different sources of 90% damage reduction, which then makes investing in armor actually useful. And it also makes it so that you can use armor if you have high base armor instead of using adaptation, for instance. So you get more diversity in actually using your armor mods instead of just slapping on adaptation on anything that wants the health tank. That's the idea I had for it. If that's a good idea, I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments. But other than that, I don't really have a good idea. I think the other thing that kind of sucks about health tanking at the moment is that most of the heals that you have are all raw values. So it's always like, for instance, the blue shards are, you heal 7 health per second or whatever. And it's like, how much is 7 health gonna do for me? 7 health per second heal is gonna do nothing, especially if they are dealing millions of damage to me and my effective health isn't that crazy. I think it's better to have all of those heal things like Arcane Grace, where it's percent health. So you actually, if you invest into health, you gain more out of those healing shards or healing abilities. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you agree. I think we can move on to the next little part, which is the Isleweaver predictions. So the first thing I want to bring up is that they're slowly reworking all of the old bosses. So I don't know if you saw the 4 changes that they want to do.
No, I didn't.
So the Vor fight that you have on Mercury, they want to basically overhaul it so that he's a little bit more of a challenge and doesn't immediately flop over. And in, I think it was like 1 or 2 dev streams ago, they mentioned that they sort of want to do that for most of the older bosses. So also for things like Lacrill or possibly even the Vor Lacrill fight on, I believe it's Ceres. So I don't know. I'm quite excited for them to change those old bosses around. I feel like they have more of a design philosophy around bosses nowadays, and they could use it to maybe trial out some new ideas, which I think is cool. So we'll see how that shapes up. And then some other changes that they quickly teased was plant resource acquisition, which I think was interesting. So instead of scanning all of your plants, now you can actually walk up to them and just hold square or whatever type of interact button you have. So it feels more like RPG picking plant materials instead of having to scan, which is a bit odd. And then for the next big thing, which leads me into a prediction I have, is that arbitrations are now unlocked from the Pluto to Eris junction. How do you feel about them pushing this kind of content earlier into the game?
Well, if they're going to bring arbitrations into Steel Path scaling, by all means. By all means. Again, it arbitrations is just like a silly gimmick with a little robot. I could hardly call it difficult, you know, but it's give it some scaling or give it some modifiers like how ETA does. I think it'd be really cool and fun to replay and fun to farm if they keep adding stuff to it. Like they have the foundation. They just got to build on it. They just land on these plots, fill it with cement, and then do it again. But they don't actually build the house.
Yeah, there's never really a lasting structure anywhere.
No. So simple. But I think the desire and the mandate to just create new is just, you know, causing this.
Yeah, it's causing this disjointed experience. I remember when I got back into the game a couple of years ago and arbitrations were a thing and Steel Path became a thing. I was like, oh, it's going to be so cool when I unlock both of them and then I can play Steel Path arbitrations. And then it didn't exist and I was like, huh?
Newsflash, buddy.
What? Why is this not a thing? This would make sense that just everything is Steel Path. Like everything can be more difficult, but no. But what I think is most interesting about them bringing this kind of content forward is that it opens up a blank space for new endgame stuff. Because as we mentioned earlier, like you said, they changed it so that you do not have to complete the entire star chart to get a Steel Path unlocked. You actually unlock it, I believe, like we said, after the new war. And now arbitrations is moved to one of the mid-game junctions, basically. It's Pluto to Eris. It's not that far into the game. You can literally get there within a day if you really want to. So what I feel like is happening is that they're moving these older endgame systems forward so that it makes space for new endgame systems later into the progression. And then I saw, I think it was last Tuesday, I saw the teaser for TennoCon with the Tau system being teased. And I was like, I think I'm onto something right here. So I don't think it would be too weird if at TennoCon we get a new kind of, I don't know, end game scaling that's being shown. Maybe it's like a Tau invasion of the origin system or something like that. Tau Path.
Dude,
just sentience everywhere.
That makes me wish, dude, if they reveal that, I'm gonna regret not going to TennoCon this year, because, like, bro, that room would go absolutely ape shit. I'd be the one making all the noise.
we are now adding Tau Path. What?
Or just like a brand new star chart with like new missions, and we're like, whoa, Warframe 2, what? Yeah,
Warframe 2, holy shit.
Warframe the sequel, dude. Yeah. Dude, the game's got bones, man. Finish what you started. Dude, yeah, Tau system would be super hype, super hype, super hype.
It would be amazing to have, but we'll have to see. But that's my prediction for it. They also teased that there's going to be some Incarnon shop changes. So the way we can buy our Incarnons at the moment. I don't know what they're going to change or how they're going to change it. Maybe we can just buy Pathos clamps. Would be cool for platinum. I don't care. Okay. The ore worm fight is definitely cool, but not 50 times in a row.
Best fight ever. Phase to skip it. Let's go.
Yeah. It is the best fight, but not if I have to do it 100 times, you know?
Yeah. It's not even a fight that's annoying. It's the missions getting to the fight.
Yeah.
Hearing tension go, lock in. Lock in. Now's your chance to lock in.
Like ashes, they fade or some shit.
Yeah.
Hearing that a million times over.
Like your sword through the wind.
We're also getting new quality of life for Captura, which they sort of stealthily added one, which is great for me, making a lot of B-roll, is that when you used to go in the advanced camera settings, you could pick positions and settings of cameras. Then you could move in between them to get like rotating shots and whatnot. Very cool. What was not so very cool is that if you had your animation of your Warframe, an idle animation or whatever animation you wanted, completely lined up with your camera movements, you couldn't unpause the game while doing the camera movement in the advanced settings. If you would press play on the advanced settings, it would automatically stop advanced time again. So the animation will just stop and everything will be frozen in time, which sucked a lot. And there were some ways to circumvent it, but it was super weird and annoying. And it took like multiple tries usually to get one sort of shot that I wanted. But now you can actually press your button to advance time in the advanced camera menu. I know this is revolutionary. And it will advance time and you can still do your rotation camera and whatnot. So that was nice. What they're going to add more, I don't know. There are some... It would be cool if you could pick idle animations or if you could like replay idle animations. So for instance, you set up a camera angle or rotation that you want and then, this, I don't know, it just didn't really fit. Like going back and forth in time would be amazing to have. So you can line everything up exactly how you want it. Some more settings for like visual sort of things would be cool. Some more color filters, things like that. Some more advancements in that. The depth of field function is also not great, so you could see some improvements there if that's possible. Who knows? Anyway, excited for that as a YouTuber. And then I think your favorite thing, 4 new Warframe augments for Kalervo, Caliban, Citrine, and Jade. What are we expecting?
Well, here's the thing. So we had talked about this earlier, and I'll just kind of like reiterate what I think. Number 1 for Kalervo, if it is his one, it would be amazing because then everyone could take advantage of it because of the Helminth system.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't know what it'll be for. We've already got one for the 4. Maybe this could be his survivability augment, the must-have, right? Where it's for his 2, and it just makes his 2 in survivability better, and he's not just an extreme glass cannon. The one I don't want, or the one I want the least, is probably the 3, because the 3 is already, like, insane. So I don't know, like, what they could do to, like, make it a must-pick, you know?
Yeah.
For Citrine, same thing. I think, you know, she's got her 1, 2, and 3. If it's her 3, holy crap. Like, my mind just ran wild with this, like... Instead of, you know, the gem could apply all those statuses to your weapons, maybe for your allies, so you could get, like, free secondary encumber on all your guns. Absolutely insane. Really, really cool. I think her 2 is fine. I don't even know if it needs an augment. Same with her 1. Kind of gimmicky, but, you know, helpful. And she's already got one for her 4th. Jade is also another really fascinating one. All of her skills could... you know, experience an augment. So I'm kind of excited to see what they'll do for Jade. And then we already know what Caliban's is, so...
I'm quite excited for Caliban's because I already have an entire build figured out for it. So that's going to be cool.
No spoilers.
Jade, I don't know what they would put for Jade. Yeah, no spoilers yet. I don't know.
I mean, if you think about it, all the frames in the selection... have something that benefits allies. Everything.
True.
Wrathful Advance can benefit allies because you can subsume it. But of course, he's got... or they have like some sort of survivability kit, I mean. So like, Caliban's got... We already know what Caliban's is, right? But it could have been the overshields. Yeah. It could, you know, with Kalervo, it could be his 2. With Citrine, it could be it could be her 2. Jade, it could be her buff. Like they could do like a full workaround of the last 3 frames, all buffing their survivability or their support kit. That would be really cool.
I think
That would be awesome.
predictions wise, if I'm going just to predict which abilities it's going to be, I think it's going to be the one for Jade, the judgments, like the things that you throw. Maybe it's something where it just follows you. Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's something that follows you around.
Like her eyes?
So it's, yeah, like it's a radius around herself that she just constantly applies to enemies that she's in range of. Instead of having to throw down the little areas. Basically like a wisp mode that follows you around. It's what I'm predicting, but who knows. But I think it's going to be for first ability because that's the worst one out of her entire kit. And I don't think they will do a glory augment quite yet. But maybe for her weapon. Maybe. Calervo, I hope it's for the 2, but no idea. I think it's... We already have one for the 4. We do not have one for the 3. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat as you with the 3. I don't know what they would change for that to make it even more busted because it's already crazy. Then Citrine, it's gonna be the gem. It's just going to be 100%. And Caliban we know, so we'll see. What they also said is there's going to be a new heavy Incarnon scythe releasing with the Isleweaver update. So we're getting another Incarnon, which is cool.
Yeah. A melee, no less, which we haven't gotten.
A melee, yeah. Speaking about melee, slam changes is the last thing that I have on the list.
Oh no. You take it away, Mr. Make a video,
Slammer.
then it gets nerfed.
I don't know. I've seen the slam changes they are proposing, and honestly, I agree with them. I think people are always overreacting whenever their busted ass builds get nerfed. What I'm predicting is that people are going to be switching to the nuke frames a lot more often. So people are going to be going crazy with Nasha's Divine Retribution. People are going to be spamming Sevagoth everywhere. Reeve is going to be introduced into a million builds. Maybe because of me. Who knows?
That's a spoiler.
What else will we see? What other frames are crazy nukers? Trinity could see a comeback a little bit with the Marked for Death nonsense. EV Trinity Marked for Death. Just all those kinds of crazy nuke builds are going to be played more often again because of the slam nerfs. But honestly, there's so many options outside of slams to do crazy damage and get to level cap that it just doesn't matter. Plus, in a way, I find it more... I don't know, it's more tactical, it's more rewarding that you have to think about, oh, I want to do this massive slam, I better bullet jump up in the air to get more damage. It makes sense, right? It feels intuitive. It makes sense. It's a little bit more annoying because you cannot macro spam it everywhere. On the other hand, you don't need to spam it everywhere anymore. It could still be very powerful, which Pablo said that on some frames it could even be better because of the way the damage will scale. But even with the nerfs coming around, you will still have plenty of opportunities to, in Void Cascade, if you have a large room where you can bullet jump up, do a big slam on a Thrax unit to instantly kill it. I still see that happening, just not in the same spammy, high KPM way that we currently have. Yeah, that's usually my take on nerfs, is people overreact. Let me... Oh. Never mind, he's gone.
I
was like, let me strip his armor.
I had to activate Roar real quick.
To be fair, we don't know what the slam nerfs are really going to feel like until we have them, which will be very soon. So I might drop a video going over what I think about it.
That's all you. I've never really used slams. I never abused them. Never did really anything with them.
Which also sort of proves the point that them being nerfed doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
No, you're gonna hit invis damage cap anyway.
Exactly.
Anyway,
apart from that, do we have anything? Yeah, do we have anything to add? Any last thoughts that we want to put in before we head to extraction?
No, just apologies for the late episode. We just sometimes it's hard to get schedules to fit. Yeah.
The people that do listen to us, and definitely the people that listen to this part, are truly insane. So
yeah, we appreciate you listening.
Bunch of crazies.
I'm looking forward to actually getting back into making videos. I really haven't made a legitimate video in a minute, just because I don't know, busy with work, and the fact that none of the content that are going on right now is, for me, is exciting to cover. So hopefully the next update and that spider frame just is really, really cool.
Let's hope so. And when it drops, I can see if we maybe can do a stream together or something, going through all of the new content. That would be cool. If it comes, if it works that way, like schedule wise, if we can make it work. But I'll definitely try to stream some once the new update hits. Apart from that, next episode we may or may not have a guest. Depends on how we can make that work. I think people could be quite excited for that.
I think, spoiler alert, this guest is very well known. Very, very well known. Very popular. Very popular. So
very well known.
More popular than both of us.
Yes. Reached out to them. They were down to do a little guest session. Idea about how that's gonna go is just we're gonna ask our guest a couple of questions, Warframe related, also some more personal stuff if they feel like answering, and then we'll see where that brings us, and maybe we can get some more guests in the future in the podcast in the future as well. I have to see. We'll try our best. Anyhow, thank you guys for listening along, and see you next time.
Peace out.